to Functions, another episode of Mr. Kitty Codes. Here we're going to talk about functions. What are they, how we use them, and what we can do with them. So what is a function? A function is just a collection of statements that either you write or that someone else writes and gives to you. And it's just a way of grouping a set of code that you might use over and over again. An example that we've done before is rect. This is a function, so the name of it is rect. We know that to run the function, we have to pass it an x, a y, and then a width and a height. And those are called the parameters of the function. So you can see here, this one has 4 parameters. So in other ones, they might actually not have any parameters, and sometimes they might have lots of parameters, or maybe even one. And if there is a function like this that has no parameters, it basically would have nothing in between the two parentheses that are there. Now, for the P5 editor, there's actually 2 special functions that we write that the computer uses, and the computer calls these functions. So the first function is called setup. It happens just once, and it happens when the program first starts. So you can see this is how you actually would write the function, and we'll go through it step by step. The very first part of this, where it says function, this is how we're declaring that this is a function, and that's how we know that it's a function, by saying function. The next part is the name of it. In this case, the name is a special name, and it has to be called setup. It's all lowercase, and there's no capital letters in it. Now, when you write your own functions, you can actually call it any name that you'd like to. The next, this is where the parameters are located, and you would define what parameters you accept. In this case, again, there are no parameters that you need to use for the setup, so there's nothing that's there. The next part is the containing braces. There is an open brace up at the top and a closing brace down at the bottom. This is where in between these 2 braces, all your lines of code go in here. So you can see this is where all your line of code would actually go. It would go right here in between the 2 braces. Now, the example here, you can see we have rect that is above the function, and that's not going to be part of the function. We have the rect that we had before, which is actually in the function, the red one. And then we have one below, which is also not part of the function. So when we write it, it needs to go in between those 2 braces, not outside of it. And you might accidentally put stuff outside of it. It's usually harder to put it before it. So here's an example of the setup function that we would write using the editor. In this case, we're calling another function, which is called createCanvas, and it's creating a canvas that's 400 by 400. Mostly in the setup, you're going to create the canvas. You might set up some variables for your game, or you might set the background to be a particular color. But there's not a lot else that goes into the setup. The other special function is draw. And so in this case, the draw actually has all your code in it, and it's going to be what will get called over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until the program quits. So after setup, then the computer starts calling draw over and 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 over again. So here is actually where we're going to put all your drawing code and animation code and code that checks to see whether the game is over. All kinds of things go into the draw. And again, you can see that this example has 3 lines of code in here. They're just comments right now, but this would be 3 lines of code. And the way that it works is when the computer gets to calling the function draw, it actually will start by going to the first line of the code, and it'll do whatever that line says. Then it will go to the second line and do whatever that line says. Finally, it will get to the third line and do whatever that line says. And then since it's reached the end, it's going to jump back up right to the top and start over again. And that's basically the simple way that you can actually write your animations or write any of your games, is just by putting it all into the draw. So that's all about functions. You can look below for more details.